Welcome back to the SENWA studio out here at Optus Stadium. Going to be a mild day in Perth today, top of 25 degrees. Scotty Sattler joins us on the phone from Sports Day, New South Wales. And Paul Heath, my producer, has been a bit unkind to Scotty here. He's calling him a Brisbane Lions nuffy as well.
Well,
Scott, welcome.
You can keep calling me, and do it at your own peril, calling me a Brisbane Lions nuffy while we hoist the trophy and have had a great start to the season, yet not really a little bit like last year. Not as bad as last year, the start of the year Lions. They came good in the end when there was all that word around Fagan has lost the dressing room, all that garbage that some people come up with. But started the season off well, but still, from comparison, probably a little bit probably not where he wants to be at the moment, but not a bad place to be. But I've got to say, I live on the Gold Coast, even though I'm a Lions fan, and Damien Hardwick has the Suns absolutely humming as well.
That game on the weekend, that was the game of the season so far. It was an absolute cracker of a game. And
they've started to get that real Hardwick hard edge to them, which I think they've failed to have. Because they've had so many young players over the years, the Suns, when they first started, and trying to develop all those through those young draft picks. And I think it takes you a while to get that real hard edge. And even though they brought in some real experienced players in the past, like your Gary Ablett's and your Campbell Browns and co, it still takes you a while to sort of get an identity as a club. And I think this is the first real time that the Suns have got a true identity of what they want to look like in 10 or 15 years' time.
They've also got, mate, pound for pound, the form player in the AFL at the moment, which is Matty Rowell. I know he didn't have he didn't have a big game against the Crows, but at ground level, he is just like a plough. He just goes straight through and takes everything with him, and he's going great guns. But hey, NRL comes to Perth this weekend, the doubleheader at Optus Stadium. Sharks versus the Sea Eagles, Rabbitohs versus the Cowboys. What can we expect, Scott?
Well, the Sharks versus Sea Eagles, you're looking at two teams there that they've had a couple of pretty good wins this year, but also on the back of some real disappointing losses as well. So they'll be desperate. Daly Cherry Evans, who was the captain of Manly, been there his whole career. He's been there since his 16th season. He's a legend of the game, and he's told the club he'll no longer be there at the end of this season. And he's 35, 36 years of age. So he'd be loving getting out of rugby league heartland, to be quite honest, to take the pressure off him a little bit from a media perspective. You got four teams, two that are really looking for some wins, and the Cowboys who beat the Premiers, the four-time Premiers last week, they're going over with a real spring in their step as well. So after a couple of really good wins, so. I just think whenever rugby league goes to some of these neutral venues, it's just exciting, I think, for the game. Do I think it's going to, just plant a flag in the ground and have a huge effect on AFL? No, it won't. But it's just exciting for the brand, I think, to take it to another audience. And seeing the gather rounds on this week in Adelaide, it gives the chance for Western Australians to think, we love our sport. Let's just go along and have a look. And we may get a fair few Western Australian sporting fans that just want to go along and look at live sports. So good scheduling, but also poor scheduling, because we actually don't have a game in Sydney this weekend, which is rugby league's heartland. So I think both codes at the moment are they're doing everything they can to try and keep the interaction with the fans.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I know the AFL is copping flack for what they do with opening round, where they try and put the focus on their frontier states in New South Wales and Queensland, but they don't play footy in Victoria or WA or South Australia, which is the footy heartland. So they do cop flack over that. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. It certainly is a AFL free city this weekend. Is it going to be a bit of a temperature test, do you think, for how the Perth public is viewing the stalled negotiations between rugby league and the WA government over the establishment of a team, that team being the North Sydney Bears revisited?
It's going to be interesting, isn't it, Duff? Because with no AFL there, they'll either say, no, we want to go and watch live sport, and this is going to prove to the Western Australian government that we do want cross-code sports. We do want a lot of sports here. It's just not about AFL, and we want as many these mainstream sports as possible. Or you've got some people who say stuff at the government the government have buggered this deal and we're not going to support it whatsoever. So it's going to be interesting. It's interesting how it plays out. I think it'll be. I don't think it'll be the latter. I think Western Australian, a lot of obviously expats from the eastern seaboard will be there that live over there, whether it's the mines, whatever it may be. They'll go along to the game, and I think the Western Australian fans will get out and look at it. And it will be, and the NRL will use it as a litmus test. Absolutely, they will, because we are right in the throes of some really important conversations at the moment, and those conversations can go either way. Duff, the NRL at the stage, from my learning, is that this is probably getting in the too hard basket. We don't want to be carrying the entire can here. Either the WA government sort of come and the consortiums come to us with a better proposal, or we're just going to move on to some other possible club. So it's a really important process at the moment, and it's probably perfect timing for the games to go over there as well.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be interesting to see what the response is. What we saw with the AFL in Tasmania is they got sick and tired of token fixtures being sent down there, and they said to the AFL, "You've got to give us a team, or we're basically not supporting the teams that you're sending down here." So it's probably a little bit early in this process for that to be happening in Perth. I think the rugby league fans over here will continue to rock up and get their fix of rugby league, but it might be a good gauge on what the market is here. And we'll get back to this later, because I reckon we'll talk about a couple of things about the competition. Daly Cherry Evans, obviously, do we have a destination for him as yet? Do we know where he's going?
No, we don't. The thing about Daly Cherry Evans, he's always been a guy that's very professional in everything that he does. Every decision he makes is in the best interest of his family. And he's got a very tight-knit little family unit that he's got there, a little good group of friends away from the game as well. And he's also very commercialised. He's always kept things so close to his chest that only those around him, very, very close to him, know what he's actually doing. He's also very he's really conscious of his image as well, and how he's being portrayed. And so we don't know where he's going to go. The most obvious club that everyone throws up because they're the easiest target is the Roosters. Now, they do need someone like Daly Cherry Evans to come in, and they have a history of rebuilding their club really, really quickly. Minor Premiers 2015, second last 2016, rebuilt the club in 12 months, won back-to-back premierships 2018, 2019. That's just their model. So they'll go down that same model. And I've got no doubt they'll be pressuring really heavily for him to go to the Roosters. Then we've got the Dolphins, where he was a junior, which is in the northern parts of Brisbane in Queensland, where he's a proud Queensland boy. Is it a legacy piece? His dad used to play for the Dolphins back in the BRL days, Brisbane Rugby League days, a little bit like the Waffle. And does he go back there as a legacy piece, a new club, a lot of money to be thrown at him? Or does he just go completely left field and go back to the Gold Coast Titans, where he signed for 10 years ago and backflipped on it? And basically everyone on the Gold Coast said, don't ever come across the border into the Gold Coast. You're not welcome here. So every time he played against the Gold Coast, he just got booed really heavily. So does he just do and his former coach and mentor, Des Hasler, is now coach of the Gold Coast Titans. Des Hasler went to his wedding at the end of last year. That's how close they are and how much he means to him. So based on his image, and he feels as though he may have done wrong to the Gold Coast, even though he's well within his rights to do it with the rules of the game. Does he say, well, I can give back to the Gold Coast again and go and relink with Desi and finish my career in Queensland? So the one thing about it, I'm not going to speculate. I don't know where he's going to go, because that's what Daly Cherry Evans has been really good at over the years, is getting everyone to speculate. And then he gives you a decision that is purely left field. So it's not going to happen for a while. We know that. So
the two things that jump off the page at you when you look at the NRL ladder, the Panthers are somewhere near the bottom and the Bulldogs are right at the top. So are the Bulldogs back, and are the Panthers done as a power in NRL?
No, the Panthers aren't done. They've got good enough players on paper that when they get them all back from injuries, that on paper they're still going to have a lot of teams looking over their shoulder. So the Panthers, if they make the top four, I think everyone realises they can still win the comp. That's going to be their battle now. Just they have Now, losing the players like Jerome Luai and James Fisher-Harris they did last year, everyone sort of thought it might be the straw that broke the camel's back, and it may be, but I just think they got the best player in the game, and they got one of the best coaches of the modern era as well, and they've got some really good players, representative players around them. So will they make the top four? I think they will, just based on their aura, and two, they just know how to win at times. And the Canterbury Bulldogs, well, they've been slowly but surely, we knew that they were going to build nicely. Phil Gould, who was quite a big polarising figure in the game, and probably one of the greatest brains in rugby league of all time. He did exactly the same model at Penrith years ago. The Penrith Football Club they were near broke. They had to build their pathways and development programs. So he went to James Packer and said, "Can I get a $5 million loan?" James Packer gave it to him, and he threw all that into pathways and development. And all of a sudden, all these kids that were 15, 16, 17 have now won 4 premierships in a row due to that development. He's done exactly the same at the Bulldogs. He spent nearly $5 million in development, and now this is all bearing fruit now. All these good players that are coming through the grades, but also bringing in some really good, reliable players. A real money balls type situation where players will play a lot of games throughout the year. They won't miss. They've been durable throughout their careers. So that means they're going to be on the field more. They get better cohesion, great connection. They win more games, and this is what's happening with the Bulldogs. So the way they're playing at the moment, are they a premiership threat? Absolutely, because they're winning really key games at the moment without 2 of their best players.
Hey, very quickly, I reckon we might get you back on next week if we can and talk at length about the Western Bears bid, because I think there's a lot to unpack there. But I
think we'll know a lot more next week, Duff, to be quite honest, because at the moment with this game in WA, I think that by this time next week we'll know a lot more. And just on that game in WA, that South game and the Cowboys. Yep. Western Australian fans, there's a guy playing in jersey number 6. If you've never heard of him before, but if you're a rugby league fan, you know who he is. He's playing number 6 for South. His name is Latrell Mitchell. He's 6'4". He's one of the most beautiful athletes you've ever seen when his head's in the game. And he is coming to Western Australia, and he is all guns firing after last week. So you're in the presence of something pretty special in the frame of mind he's in at the moment.
Hot tip from Scott Sattler. Mate, thanks so much for rejoining us on the show. We've missed you. We've even missed the inability of you to gloat about a Brisbane Lions premiership in the months you haven't been with us. But look forward to talking to you next week when we might get a little bit further into that Western Bears bid and see how that's tracking. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No worries, guys. And go the Lions.
Go the Lions, yes. Wouldn't be complete without that. Scott Sattler from Sports Day New South Wales, of course, a Brisbane Lions fanatic and a Penrith legend. We'll be back with more after the break.